of Prolific Pulse Press, and I'm happy to welcome one of our authors here today, Bill Waldorf, with William Waldorf. His friends call him Bill, and so I'm going to call him that. So
Right.
welcome, Bill, to the show, and congratulations on 101 Stories of Love, your poetry collection. And of course, we
Thank you.
published together Ways of Love as well. So
Yeah.
I have both books up on my screen so people can see them.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
What a prolific author that you are.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
welcome.
Yeah, you say that. It's funny because I wrote, we did a contest to write a story in, I don't know, third or fourth grade. I remember writing a story and using um, a conversation to make the story rather than a poem. And I finished the story with a poem. And the teacher told me that my story won the contest. And I couldn't believe it. I didn't accept it. I
Oh,
couldn't believe
wow.
it. Yeah, I really
How
didn't.
old were you at the time?
I was in third grade in grammar
Oh,
school, whatever it was, third or fourth grade, when you start to write stories and you
uh-huh.
start to do the creative writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't believe it. So that's how and then so for a while, for a long time, I didn't write as a result of that because I was like, um, nervous about it because all of a sudden I was no longer one person amongst 400 students. I know as the guy who wrote the story. So it became, I had gained some kind of recognition amongst my peers. And
Yeah.
that was difficult to learn how to adjust to people at that time. So that taught me sensitivity for that. My sister also suffered from polio as a child and was in an iron lung for 7 months. And
Mhm.
I would gather her from grammar school. She's 4.5 years older than I was. So in grammar school, I would take her, go to her class and collect. For her penmanship class, everybody would write stories or daily things that happened to their day. And I would bring those letters with my mother to the hospital to be read to her when she was in the iron lung. That's what we would do. And as a result, that I guess that's my first falling in love with poetry, and because she loved poetry. And at that time, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, how do I love the poems? Stories from the Portuguese, I think is what it's called, right? Or sonnets from the Portuguese, I forget what. And that's what it was. And I fell in love with Elizabeth Barrett Browning's work and sonnets. And I guess I've been falling in love with sonnets every day ever since. Although I do write other forms of poetry. Yeah. Yeah. But I think I don't, I like to be done. It's like you don't want to talk too much. So when I'm talking too much, you have to come in and tell me to stop because I'm always thinking I'm
Fun.
rambling on. And I know that that's okay here, but normally that's why I like a sonnet. It's 14 lines, it's done, and you make your point, as most poets have throughout the history, as Shakespeare knew. Shakespeare just didn't title his poems, he numbered them. Yeah. I like to try and find the title. Uh, Barbara Hirschfield used to say you can pull a title out of a poem like a thread out of a sweater. I have not been able to find those loose threads. It's never, I really, it's difficult for me to find those threads, right? But that's where I'm at. I'm at the point I love sonnets. And of course, as somebody once said, because I like to write about romance, you must be a hopeless romantic. And I guess I am. I'm hopelessly a romantic in love with love.
There's
Yes.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Is that
Uh,
how you wooed your wife? Did you woo her with poetry?
well, my wife and I, we met each other. I met her in her living room. A friend of mine, we were she was 17, I was 19. So I met her in her living room. A friend of mine, in those days, we had cars. We used to take rides. And he said he had a girl he wanted to introduce me to. And I told him, of course, I don't want to be introduced. I don't need any blind dates. Of course, that's always the smartest thing to do when someone's trying to give you a favor. And so he took a ride up because he said he had, hold on a moment. Let me just get rid of that. Yeah, 1 minute. No, okay, I'd taken care of. So he would go ahead and we took a ride up. She lived in the ritzier part of town. I was a city boy, so we drove up to the ritzier part of town to drop off something because his father and her mother had something going on, so he had to drop something off for her mother. And I met her there, and that's how we met in her living room. I always tease her. I found her in her living room. We married as kids. I mean, we were in our. I was in my 20s, and she was a teenager. Maybe she was older. I don't know. I don't remember. But we've been together for over 60 years, married and living together. So yeah, I have a friend of mine says I never had a fight. I said, well, that's not really true. I said, but we learn to really adjust that and learn to go forward with that. You have to learn to adjust that. Yeah, that's not a will. Right? And she always gets embarrassed. She says people are going to wonder what, because that's why I wrote a poem. I'll take the ugly love. I wrote a love story about I'm in love with an ugly love, but she doesn't like her hair. She doesn't like that. She goes, yeah, but I love every wrinkle on her face. Is what I said. So that's how I wrote the poem. Yeah,
Aw.
yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Does she write as well?
No, she doesn't write. No, she doesn't write poetry. No, yeah.
Did she read all of yours?
She proofreads them. Yeah, looks them over. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a very good. People read things, and you could miss. We go to critique classes because we want critique people to give us input about how our poems are, and if they've missed something, if we don't have enough, if we made an extra space between a word. And some people are gifted enough to see that. Other people can overread that to mind adjust for what's missing. Right. So they overread that. Don't my wife is very technical. She used to find all the words transposed or the letters transposed, and she's very good. She's got a good eye for that. I
That's
tease her.
good,
I
because that's
tease her about
certainly
that.
a
Yeah.
common
I always
mistake.
hear this. It's how did I know I was going to marry a proofreader? I always tease her about it.
That's a blessing.
Well, it's really good. Yeah. Well,
Yes.
it's funny because I used to work for a large company, right? And I don't know what's going on. Okay, I have a chat thing. And then what happens is they would send stuff and we'd find things because the company would send out a bulletin about something and we'd pick up something that needs to be, why is it reading AI meeting notes? I don't know what that means.
I fixed it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, we would come across something and we'd send it back and it was circled and said, well, you sent this out, you missed that. So after a while, some people who in my company, before they would send the bulletin out, they used to send it to our office. We had my own financial planning office. They sent it to the office. Please have your wife take a look at it before we send it out. And I'd laugh. I'd say to her, they have to pay you. You have to get more money from them. Yeah. But that's our story. We've been together for a long time. We have 2 children. And yeah, and several dogs that are no longer here. We can't go through the pain. There's a pain in being in love. I write about that separately. I haven't published that book yet about the pain of being in love. Right? And losing a dog, losing pets, losing people who you really love. There's another thing, another side to love too that I haven't written yet. Because it's so painful.
Yeah, very difficult to write that kind of a
Yeah,
book.
I'm working on
And
it. It's you can I write rhymes, so I try to put the couplet together and write it, and I write it in a formal poetry. I've written, oh, you like my poem. I've written villanelles. You like the door poem, chocolate. Right? I always hesitate to, that's like a new branch. And I began writing that in hesitation when I sent it to you. And I figured, okay, let you decide, right? Because it's a new form for me because I like to write in form, right? Form, right. And you went, oh, I like chocolate. And who doesn't like that? Who doesn't like chocolate? Like
I
cheese.
thought it was a good one to
So we
add to
put it
that
in the book.
collection.
We put it in the book, and a lot of other people apparently like chocolate too. It's cute. Everybody, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as one who can't have those things so much anymore, Makes me appreciate it even more.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like I can read about it in a poem.
yeah, right. That's true. You can read about it in a poem, right? Yeah. Right.
What have you been doing since your book came out?
Well, I did several readings in Hillsborough, where I read poems from my book. I'm trying to schedule another reading at in the library. I'm going to an open reading later on this week, where we'll read poetry. I read from the book. Um, I've been, you know, I've been talking about the book, and I've been writing. I write every day. I write 3 to 4 poems every day, right? I'm involved in other critique groups. One you know about, you represented that author, and then I'm in others. I mean, so I do a lot of writing, and
Yeah, you stay busy.
yeah, well, yeah. Somebody said that to me, but I celebrated. I'm going to celebrate a birthday soon. All right,
Happy birthday.
thank you. Yeah. Well, I wrote a poem. I wrote like a prose poem about that. This is Veterans Day today,
Yes,
and
it
the tenth
is.
and the 10th is the anniversary of the Marine Corps.
Mhm.
November 10th. Most people don't know that, but when you've been in the service, you need to know answers to questions when
Mhm.
you're pulling guard duty, because people ask you things about your service.
Yeah.
You need to know that. So November 10th and that November 11th, well, was V-Day, Victory Day. It didn't used to be Armistice Day. It was something else. But they always had parades after the war, because it was after the war, November 11th is when it was celebrated.
Yeah.
And my mother would tell me, because my birthday is within this week, that they were going to hold the parade for my birthday, because it was the week of before my birthday. And November 11th was a couple of days before. So we would have the parade for your birthday. It was also the day most stores began their holiday shopping. So my mother would use that excuse to go to where the parade was, usually in the middle of the city, downtown, where the stores are, to go shopping after the parade. And I would go dressed in my little sailor suit and stand there and get a balloon and freeze and wait till they pass, and then we'd go out to lunch. In those days, you could drop a child off in the toy department of a department store, and you could go shopping. Today, you can't do that. They don't want you leaving children alone by themselves. But in those days, that's what they did, right? And I would be there for a while, or be in the book portion of the department store reading, and that's what they would do until we would go shopping and have lunch. And there was a horn and heart art in one of the department stores in Newark. I forget what the name, which store it was, but it was just amazing for me that I could put nickels. People don't even know what nickels are. Nickels into and pull out a sandwich or pull out some stuff there. So that's what we used to do, and that was my celebration, my mother's celebration for my birthday. And there was
Oh,
always a
nice.
parade for me. My cousins tease to this day. They tease me. Yeah, yeah, you believe everything. How long did it take you to not believe that there's a Santa Claus? I believe this. I said, well, there's always a problem when you're having a parade for your birthday and then you get presents. There's always the conflict of what's the word? Uh, whether you should tell, and then you may not continue to get the presents, or better to not tell. And it's okay to be thought of as a fool as long as you're getting the presents.
Yeah,
So that is a conflict. That's right.
worked out.
Yeah, well, that's what happens. Yeah. But that's my story about my birthdays.
So, let's talk about your book, 101 Stories of Love. How did you select the poems for your book? How did you know which ones are the correct ones for that?
Well, first of all, they all have special meaning to me, every one of them. It's difficult for me. It's always hard to get criticism on your work, and it's a hard thing. And someone in a critique said to me once, "You got to learn to kill your babies to get better ones." So I laughed. I said, "Yeah, but I don't want to kill any one of them. I find that hard to deal with." So it becomes a question of deciding. Well, what do you think? My wife helps me with what she thinks is a good poem and what she thinks that's a good subject. That's a good point. And the other is I try and uh, in uh, in Ways of Love, the first book, I generated poems about love and about the difficulty and not using form. There's a lot of things that are not form. It was a free verse poem on the Ways of Love, and I realized that maybe the form is better to be able to put the message through, because when you hear the repetition of something going on that you get with a form, it becomes a stronger rhyme, a stronger message that you put through. So that's what I did. And most of it is as a result of critique classes. It's hard sometimes. I mean, I sit in a critique class, I present a poem, and then there's silence. I'm waiting for somebody to say something. So it always becomes difficulty because it's like I have to give someone license to criticize. It's okay. What do you think it is? And then I have to draw it out. But usually it's no, I wouldn't change anything. So it's always hard sometimes to be in that situation. Yeah.
Do you ever get in a critique situation where someone does criticize and you want to argue back to them?
Yeah, well, when I first started writing, yes. And then I realized afterwards, see, I remember I didn't take um, the prize when I was a child. And the teacher used to take my work in the next grade. You're like in third or fourth grade, I forget where it was. When we got to diagramming sentences, most people have no idea what I'm talking about, but we would take a sentence and write the sentence out, and then we would take the word, the noun, and put it there, and then we would put a perpendicular block, and that would be, and we would diagram it, and we would, if you want to look that up sometime, how to diagram a sentence. Probably not waste
I
time.
had to learn that too in
Yeah.
school.
Well, every time I came into class, I don't know if she was punishing me or trying to teach me. Who knows? Now I think it was more teaching, but in those days I thought it was punishment because my work would always be on the board. My work would be the one that was being deciphered. My work was being there. And I always felt like, because from the beginning I got notoriety, I won an award. I won for a story, right? But afterwards, it was like the burden of fame becomes a curse when you get older. Right. So I had to look at it because I'm just saying I learned that quickly. So when I get involved in an individual critiquing me, I think to myself, well, for me, the poem stands as a statement. The author is making a statement. The poem stands by itself. There's nothing else. It's poem. It's your emotions bare placed on a page for someone to see. It's your breath that you've taken from nothing and added syllables and words and made something that didn't exist before you did it. If the poem does not meet what you want to say, then maybe you need another breath. Maybe you need to take it again and look at it. But you look at it. So for me, I take a more, I guess, easier going approach to it when I ask somebody, okay, well, then you didn't, because they'll say something. I say, well, I said that in the first line. Oh, I didn't see that. And I think to myself, well, it wasn't strong enough with the words in the first line. So, but that's my note. Their note is, well, you should change that, or you didn't say it. Well, we have differences of opinion, but for me, it's more a learning experience. There are some people who I think there are people within a group. There's always one that sees nothing correct in a writing group. So you have to learn after a while. It's the same person critiquing you. So then, if you're always going to complain, then your complaints begin to lose value. It's like if you like, we all love chocolate, but if we eat too much, after a while, that last piece doesn't taste as good as the first. It's the same thing. So we learn to figure it out. I've become initially, I was always ready to fight, but then I realized in time that's not what I'm using the critique group for. I'm using them to tell me how they look at it, and am I making myself clear? My father used to have an expression because he used to sell things and he used to tell stories, and when he would sell things, he would always say, it was a thing that irritated me, but he would always say, "You follow me? Are you following me?" That's what he would always say after he said his story. "Are you following me?" Right. That's his test. And that used to irritate me that he would say that. But I understand he needed to get recognition that they understood that. And that's the only expression he needed to do. A critique group lets you know if they're following you.
That's right. So, do you have a particular favorite poem in 101 Stories of Love?
Well, yeah, I do. I have the poems I've written for people. Well, I have a particular favorite poem. It's a short one.
Well, please read it for us.
Okay. It's called A Mirage. The tire looks low. I call road service. No loss of air, told. The gauge number's correct. It must be filled with doubt. Each time I drive, it asks me to look. It makes me uneasy.
Yes, that is a nice one.
And I like, I like Stare for Clues. It's on page 84.
Okay.
I'm half, not a whole. No one's here. My disability cost a bankroll, which I can't understand. Much is not clear. Hard to be special, constantly struggle. Life on the spectrum is seldom easy. Literal misses, subtle suggestions, unable to hear those voice inflections. Makes relationships at first feel shaky. Since most will require more directions to satisfy my new friend's proposal, will think hesitation is disapproval before I'm able to show corrections. Nonverbal is a difficult dialogue to know or show when I try to connect.
Well, that is certainly a relatable poem in
Oh,
many ways.
Yeah.
So
How
many,
do you explain that to someone? Yeah.
yeah, so many people, you're speaking for so many people. That poem has voices for many people.
Yeah.
At the risk of being redundant to say that, it's just, yeah, I think that's a universal poem.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah. Well, time haunts me. The clock over my kitchen table just stopped. Changed the batteries at no minute, hand sweep, no movement. I'm unable to start sleep, but began to think maybe it was dry. Hard to buy online since stores don't feature. It will take 3 days to arrive here when it fell off the wall. Must have lost a gear. Sat above a butterfly frame picture. What's my choice? I asked the horologist. It's a person who fixes clocks. To help find a proper size to hide this space, which pulls my compulsive, repetitive gaze to it each time I sit to eat breakfast and watch how time dictates my behavior to rush or eat slowly at this hour.
Very good. Very good.
Well, I picked ones that I think others wouldn't hear. And then I wrote about intimacy is more than a caress or a touch when you're near. Words aren't needed for a love wish. It's strong, like friendship adds the ability to anticipate, not hesitate, to share. The brush of hair away from your face, to sense you're cold or warm, and will be there in your space. With a kiss or hug when hungry or tired and know what's preferred from a look or a shrug. To be intimate is to give to you my love, warmth, like a soft glove holds tight and offers laughter on a sad day to comfort you with my care.
That certainly defines it well.
Thank you. And then now I'm trying not to pick the ones that okay. I like this one too. It's called Locked In. I talk about wrong. Listen, in the quiet of the day's early rise, I reflect upon my varied replies to times when I often acted caustic as to burn friendships. Then I was stoic. Now compelled to face a cloudy future with my dim vision through a deep fog's blur, lit by my glow from an ash-covered coal, my mind begins to wander as I stroll with my fourscore years towards my destiny. Over those souls discarded in prior years, they no longer wish to share my journey. Each pebble was placed down on those frontiers, marked by me precious, but still left alone, a cobblestone path towards my blank unknown. Blind, I grope for your hand, my companion, like a turtle. Shell offers protection. Your past insights have been my salvation. I fear the future without your actions. To have the rarest gem, most valuable known to all, is your true love's gifted jewel. Walk with me, my dear, as we'll share our time locked together in love for a lifetime. Hold my hand, touch me, the man at your side, and make me once again feel fortified.
Very nice. Excellent. Excellent work, Bill.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Well, how about this one? I'll ask them from. What do you see? You can learn a lot from a pet dog. Went away from the tail, says hello. Too tired for a touch and a sniff today. Two loving eyes never leave my gaze as we lie and stare at each other while we doze together in our sleep. If I turn, a head will rise awake, not sure, but ready to follow me. When a bathroom urge calls, it will nudge hard with the press from its cold, damp nose. Taught me, don't eat where you defecate. Unconditional love is rare as the eclipse of the golden sun. When then, and only then, of grief you will illustrate trust, fragility. Yes, learn a lot if you watch closely.
Well, Bill, it's been such a pleasure to talk with you today. I wonder if you might take us out with chocolate cake.
Oh, you want me to read that one? Okay, sure.
Yes, I believe it's toward the end of the book.
Yeah, I put it at the end, 103. Yeah, 103. Chocolate cake. You often want the one you shouldn't take. Forbidden always looks like the sweetest. Remember what happens with chocolate cake? Afterwards, you'll know it was a mistake to polish off more than you can digest. But you often want the one you shouldn't take. Dipped a piece into the coldest milkshake, soggy, soaked, soft gulps help as you ingest. Remember what happens with chocolate cake. Bloated from an unnatural intake. Stretched stomach pains push for a time to rest. You often want the one you shouldn't take. Your belly rumbles, sounds like an earthquake, as thoughts of more sweets now make you feel stress. Remember what happens with chocolate cake as your glazed eyes stare at your high pile plate. You try to recall which bite could cause this. You often want the one you shouldn't take. Remember what happens with chocolate cake.
That's really great and actually a real metaphor in that poem.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you, Bill, so much for coming on here. I really appreciate you, and I wish you the very best with your book.
Thank you, thank you. And piling more. So when we sell out all this book,